Hi folks, it's Pete. After the efforts of doing the krautrock video, I thought I'd just back with a quick look at what's I've been listening to and what's come into the collection over the last couple of weeks since I did my last Pete's Picks. But first, a big thank you to everybody who's commented on the krautrock video. Seems to have got a really good reaction. Thank you. I'm currently working on second part. Hopefully that might come out later in the week. Okay, let's get on. So let's start off with Mr. Young and the latest in his archive series. This is Young Shakespeare. This is a solo concert from 1971 at the Shakespeare Theatre in Connecticut, I think. One of the problems with this album is that the details of the gig are nowhere on the cover, nowhere on the labels, only on the hype sticker. But luckily, the hype sticker is peelable, and I stuck it on the cover, inside cover. So you can see there the gig was at Shakespeare Theatre, Stratford, Connecticut, January 22nd, 1971. And it is superb. If you like solo Neil from that period, you're going to love it. Why did albums never go back in? Got to say, I'll put it back properly later. It's a great set list. Tell Me Why, Old Man, The Needle and the Damage, Don't Know Ohio, Cowgirl in the Sand, Man Needs a Maid, Helpless, Down by the River, Sugar Mountain. Superb stuff. Right, that's Mr. Young. Quite fancied listening to some folk this week, so I took this out. This is Mysteries by the Home Service. Now, the Home Service were a band that came out of basically the Albion band after their album Rise Up Like the Sun, I think, and their work for Lac Rice from Candleford. This is their the music they did for the mystery plays that the National Theatre did. I think this was released in 1985. Now, the Home Service were John Tams on vocals and Melodian, who was from the Albions. You had Bill Caddick, who was a well-known singer-songwriter of the folk scene. You had Graham Taylor on lead guitar, who was from the Albion band, but also was the guitarist in Griffin, and he's now back, I think, with Griffin now that they've reformed. You've got Jonathan Davey on bass, who was, I think, one of the later bassists with Griffin as well. You've got Steve King on keyboards, and then Michael Gregory on drums. Well, what sort of set them apart at the time from most folk bands was they had a horn section of Howard Evans on trumpets and Roger Williams on trombone, who also, I think, went on to play with Martin Carthy and John Kirkpatrick in the band Brass Monkey. But this is really good music. If you know the later band Bellowhead, I often wonder whether they were influenced by the Home Service in having that large ensemble with brass instruments as well. Linda Thompson also guests on this album on vocals. Really good album. Next up, we go to 1981, and this is John Foxx with his second solo album, The Garden. Now John Foxx was obviously the vocalist for Ultravox for their first three albums. And this is very much in that synth pop vein. I suppose it's like Gary Newman, but not as cold. This is more romantic in feel, very much like the third Ultravox album, I think, Systems of Romance. In fact, the song Systems of Romance that was written for the Ultravox album didn't appear on there. Is on here. There's, I think this was quite popular at the time. It got in the charts, spent 6 weeks in the charts, and the opening track, I think, Europe After the Rain, was a hit single. It comes with a really nice booklet called Church, which is photos by John Foxx and text. After it's called Church because a couple of the tracks on here are heavily influenced by church music and prayer, Paternoster and the title track itself, The Garden. Hadn't listened to this in a long time, but was pleasantly surprised how well it's held up. Next up, an album and a band that I didn't know about. This is Chilliwack, who were a Canadian trio from they started, I think, in the early 70s, but around about 1969, 70, and worked until the 80s, or mid-80s. I didn't know what to expect with this. I was looking for something to pad out a Discog order, as you do, to spread out the postage cost. And I saw this. I had a quick listen to 1-2 tracks on YouTube. I thought, it sounds okay. Cheap price, go for it. And it's really good. But it's a double album, and the two albums are totally different. The first side of LP1 is very much in that West Coast songs and music vein. In fact, great track, the last two tracks, Riding In and Ride Out, which segue together to form one track, are absolutely excellent. They're particularly Riding Out or Ride Out, which has some great instrumental interplay and great acoustic guitar. Side 2 is occupied mainly by the 13.5-minute changing reels, a long track with lots of improvisation, but again, very much in that West Coast vein. But then you get to the second disc. I think anybody who's just listened to the first will wonder what's hit them. They're, as I said, just better say who's in the band. They're a three-piece band. Bill Henderson on guitar, piano and vocals. Claire Lawrence, a man. Claire, even though it's spelt with an E, which isn't usually the case if it's a male. He's on flute, bass, organ and saxophone, and then you have the drummer Ross Turney on drums. But side 1 of disc 2 is just the two members, Bill and Claire, in an echo chamber, recorded in an echo chamber. And it starts off with a beautiful track called Shine, which is just vocalizations with the reverb and the echo of the chamber itself. You then get claps and chants, so you can imagine what that is, and then whistle flute pads, which reminds me a little bit of Paul Horn and his album of flute music in the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it's all very ambient, using the echo chamber to the max. totally not what you'd expect after the first disc. And then you get side 4, which is one whole 17-minute track called Night Morning. And I'll just read what it says here. Night Morning is the result of a studio full of instruments and microphones set up to record any free-form music we might want to play. Ross sat at the organ and started to play sounds with hands, head and elbows. Bill and Claire joined in on piano, flute and vocals, and the piece grew from there. It's very spacey. In fact, it reminds me of something that maybe Tangerine Dream would have done around the time of Sight, before they had synths. Just the sparse organ and the guitar. Really good. I think they went more in an AOR direction later on, but I'd be interested to hear their first album. Next up, this album was shown by Chris, Mr. John Coltrane 68, on his superb channel. Check him out if you haven't seen it. And this is the album Caprice by Georges Grunblatt. Now, Georges Grunblatt was a co-founder of Helden with Richard Pinnis. Helden being a big favourite to mine. I love that band. This is his only solo album, recorded I think in '77 and but not released until 1980. This is a reissue from I think 2017 if I'm right. If you like Helden and Richard Pinnis, then you're going to like this. In fact, Richard Pinnis plays on 3 of the tracks, and other Helden members, Patrick Gauthier on Minimoog, Didier Battard on bass, and Francois Auger, the drummer of Helden, all play on here. You also get Michel Ettori or Vidorge or Vidorie, I'm not sure how you meant to pronounce it, the great Zool band. And on the last track playing bass is Harold Konietzko, who's of the German krautrock band Thirsty Moon. But no, this is superb. It reminds me of the first Helden album, mixed with a bit of sort of like Richard Pinnis's Iceland. It's a shame he never did anything more. I think he gave up music after this and I think went into psychiatry. But superb album. Thank you very much, Chris, for the heads up on that. I managed to get this from a seller in France on Discogs, and it was a mint copy, sealed. Luckily, looking for that, the same seller had two albums that I've been after for quite a while, a band I really love, and that is the French prog band Catharsis. This is their second album, Volume 2, Le Chavon. It's the band, striking bunch. And this is their third album, 32 Mars. Probably one of the shortest albums you're ever going to hear. It's about 23 minutes long. I mean, the title track is 11 and a half minutes, and it occupies the whole of the first side and is repeated as a 3-minute track at the end, so you see how short it is. But they're a distinctive, got a distinctive sound, and I find it difficult how to describe them really. The sound's dominated by the I think the organ of Roland Bouquet, this guy. Quite haunting, psychedelic, quite dark in its atmosphere. There are sort of Middle East influences at places, classical influences. I've read it as described as a sort of cross between Italian band Goblin and Van de Graaff Generator. Not sure that's quite accurate, but it's as good a description as I can come up with. But I was so pleased to find these two at a really cheap price. I've got 3 of their albums. I think they only did 6 in total. Excellent. Finally, we have an album that, or an artist that was recommended by Chris, the Vinylising Progger. So you're going to know it's going to be Norwegian. And this is Electric by Arne Nordheim. And it's on the Rune Gramophone label. Now, Arne Nordheim was born in 1931, I think died in 2010, and he's considered to be one of the greatest Norwegian classical composers of his time. Composed orchestral music, chamber music, choir, and also a lot of TV and film music. But he also, like a lot of composers, the mid to late 20th century, dabbled in electronics and electroacoustic music, and this is what is compiled on this album. It's quite immersive music, but not difficult. It's not like a lot of other classical composers who went into electronics like Stockhausen, which can be very difficult, very avant-garde. I find this to be a lot easier to get into. There seems to be more structure to it than, say, a Stockhausen piece, but what do I know? But excellent. If that sounds up your street, I would recommend trying him out. So that's it. That's enough. It's already gone to 17 minutes. So hopefully by the back end of this week, maybe earlier, I will have got the second part of the Krautrock series done. If I don't do them quickly, then they're going to take for about 3 or 4 years to do. Anyway, everybody take care, be well.